Chiefs Kingdom. This is Gary McKenzie, your host of Gridiron Lines, back at you again for another episode here on the RGR Football Network, the best place to find Chiefs YouTube content. Not speaking about myself, referring to Dan, Ryan, and Seth. Those guys are awesome. I'm just here playing my little role. So, today's video, I just wanted to go back in time, take a little brief detour through history, and talk about my 5 favorite, or maybe not even mine, but what I believe to be the 5 most impactful off seasons for the Chiefs throughout the entire franchise's history. So as you know, this has been an interesting offseason for the Chiefs. They signed Hollywood Brown. Rashee Rice has gotten into some legal problems. There's the draft coming up. So interesting things happening this offseason for the Chiefs, but I want to go back through history and talk about 5 off seasons that I believe were the most impactful for the Chiefs. So the Chiefs' 5 best off seasons of all time. And real quick, before I jump into the list, I want to start with an honorable mention. So, in 2019, so following the 2018 season, the Chiefs made the decision to let go of Bob Sutton. And after letting go of Bob Sutton, they went and signed Steve Spagnuolo. While this isn't the acquisition of a player or a head coach, this gets my honorable mention spot for, I guess, maybe the 6th best Chiefs offseason move of all time because of the impact Steve Spagnuolo's had on this defense. And I don't believe the Chiefs win these 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years if Steve Spagnuolo is not the defensive coordinator. I think Steve Spagnuolo has a real case to wind up in the Hall of Fame. So, tremendous move in the offseason following 2018, and that's my honorable mention. So now we'll move on to the top 5, and we'll go from 5 down to 1, with 5 being less impactful than number 1. And before we go and jump into a list, I want to remind everyone here, hey, if you're new here, welcome aboard. This is RGR Football, Gridiron Lines, and since you're here, might as well take some time to hit that like button. Really helps us out. And then if you want to, subscribe as well. We're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers, inching closer every day. And maybe we'll have some type of celebration once we hit 30,000. And I think we're going to get there. So appreciate everyone who's hopped on board, comments on the channel, likes the videos, and subscribes. We really appreciate all of you. Got nothing but love for all of you. But now moving on. Number 5. The 5th best offseason in Chiefs history, by my evaluation, is the season following the 2001 season. So in 2001, the Chiefs were using Gunther Cunningham as the head coach. And actually, Cunningham was the coach from 1999 to 2000. So this is the offseason coming before the 2001 season. So you can call it the 2001 offseason. But the Chiefs were struggling. You know, they had just gone through a long tenure with Marty Schottenheimer, and then Gunther Cunningham took over for Marty Schottenheimer. And the Chiefs' offense was terrible. They were trotting out Damon Heward out there to play the quarterback position for the Chiefs, and just weren't getting it done offensively. Bring in that offseason, the 2001 offseason, and the Chiefs hired Dick Vermeil. They also acquired Trent Green in April of 2001. So as soon as the season was over, the Chiefs made their move in January 2001 to hire Dick Vermeil. And then Dick Vermeil having known Trent Green from his days in St. Louis with the Rams, got hold of Trent Green. Eventually, a year later after that, the Chiefs would sign Willie Roaf. And bringing Dick Vermeil into Kansas City made a huge impact on the team because they went from one of the worst offenses in the league almost immediately to one of the best offenses that the Chiefs franchise had ever seen. Dick Vermeil was a great head coach. Unfortunately, the Chiefs could not get it done in the playoffs with this group, but Dick Vermeil brought a sea change for this organization who had been struggling with Gunther Cunningham as a head coach and got back to their winning ways, turned into one of the most successful offenses in the NFL. And that was a huge offseason for the Chiefs when they brought Dick Vermeil into the fold. Number 4. So, this is following the 1988 season. So, going into the 1989 season, the Chiefs had just gotten over a couple seasons with Frank Gans as a head coach. And before Frank Gans, it was John Malkovich. And so, the 80s for the Chiefs were a decade of futility. The Chiefs were not very good in the 80s, could not put it together. And so the ownership of the Chiefs chose to go a different way. And they brought 2 people to Kansas City during that offseason heading into the 1989 season that changed the franchise forever. And they decided to hire Marty Schottenheimer in January of 1989, immediately after the 1988 season. And they also brought Carl Peterson to Kansas City during that offseason. The very first draft that Carl Peterson had with the Chiefs, he picked up Derek Thomas. So that 1989 offseason, that 1989 draft, the Chiefs changed the head coach to Marty Schottenheimer, who became one of the winningest head coaches in Chiefs history. They brought in a GM who served for the Chiefs for, I believe, over 20 years. Long-term stay in Kansas City, beloved GM, and they drafted a Hall of Fame pass rusher, all in one offseason. They'd made these 3 moves. So it was a huge offseason for the Chiefs and had a massive impact on their future. Eventually, Carl Peterson would land Joe Montana heading into the 1993 season. So Montana was signed in April of 1993. And things looked bright for the Chiefs, and things were moving in the right direction. Once again, though, unfortunately, the Chiefs never made a playoff push with this group. They did one of the years with Montana, but whenever he got knocked out in a playoff game against the Buffalo Bills with a concussion, the Chiefs weren't able to overcome that and never ended up making it to the Super Bowl or even an AFC Championship game with that group. But Marty Schottenheimer completely changed the style of the Chiefs offense and the Chiefs team as a whole. Under Schottenheimer's leadership, the Chiefs became known for tough defense, disciplined play, and a strong running game. And then when Joe Montana came on board, it provided the Chiefs stability and a high caliber level of play at the quarterback position. And I truly believe that if Montana had not gotten hurt, had not gotten that concussion in that playoff game versus the Bills, the Chiefs might have gone to the Super Bowl that year. So that was number 4. Number 3. So this is following the 1963 season. So after 1963, the Chiefs did a number of huge moves in 1963. And here's why it's number 3 for me. So first of all, before the 1963 season, the Chiefs were known as the Dallas Texans. They were playing in Dallas. And they were struggling to compete with the other team in Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys. And the Cowboys had joined the NFL in 1960. So Lamar Hunt at the time decided that he would relocate the Chiefs franchise to Kansas City, Missouri. and they were rebranded as the Kansas City Chiefs. So that 1963 offseason, the Chiefs became the Chiefs. They moved to Kansas City. Also in that offseason, the Chiefs picked up Hank Stram as their head coach. And Stram brought with him a wealth of coaching experience and a successful track record. He had previously served as an assistant coach with the Dallas Texans and the University of Miami before being promoted to head coach. So he was an insider, got promoted from the inside. You very rarely see that in the NFL today. But Hank Stram had an innovative coaching style. He was known for his strategy while coaching. He introduced new formations, new plays, and had new plays in the offense, with a moving pocket. So he was the originator of the moving pocket. And he also utilized something called his triple stack defense. So the Chiefs became known for a high-powered offense and an aggressive defense with Hank Stram as the head coach. And eventually the Chiefs with Hank Stram would go on and win the Super Bowl, win Super Bowl IV. So in addition to all these great things the Chiefs did during that offseason, not only did they move to Kansas City, they hired Hank Stram as their head coach, a Super Bowl winning head coach, but they also drafted 2 Hall of Fame caliber players in that draft in 1963. And I'm looking at my notes here, but I believe it was Buck Buchanan and Willie Lanier that were taken in that draft in 1963. So not only did the Chiefs go and sign... Oh, hold on. Sorry. It was Buck Buchanan and Bobby Bell. I apologize for that. That's my mistake. So not only did the Chiefs move to Kansas City, but they also picked up Hank Stram as the head coach and then drafted 2 Hall of Fame players in that 1963 offseason. So that is a heck of an offseason. That's number 3 in my book. So it almost makes you wonder what the heck could beat that, because it's a huge offseason. But my number 2 offseason for the Chiefs. This is the first offseason that was led by Clark Hunt. So all these other moves, all these other decisions in other offseasons were ran by Lamar Hunt, so Clark Hunt's father. And my number 2 was the 2012 offseason, or the season heading into 2013. So the Chiefs had just had an abysmal year with Romeo Crennel serving as the head coach. I believe they went 2-14. One of the players had a murder-suicide where he killed himself in the parking lot, and some of the Chiefs staff saw that. Some of the Chiefs coaching staff and ownership had witnessed it. And the Chiefs franchise was at an all-time low. I mean, this was a horrible year. I don't think that the 2012 season could have gone any worse. I mean, I would say that would be the worst season in Chiefs history. And what does the organization do? Clark Hunt set out to find a very particular head coach. And he said what he wanted from a head coach was a proven track record of success. I think that what Clark Hunt did was similar to what Lamar Hunt did before the 2001 season, when he went looking for a head coach with experience that had won before. And that's why they picked Dick Vermeil going in 2001. I think that offseason imprinted on Clark Hunt. So Clark Hunt wanted to do something similar and had the same thought process and went through and picked up Andy Reid. So Andy Reid was hired in January of 2013, immediately following the 2012 offseason. Clark Hunt famously wouldn't let Andy Reid leave Kansas City without a deal. As you know, that Andy Reid was going to go to Arizona. and have an interview with them, but he ended up falling in love with Kansas City and choosing to stay there. So, also, along with the hiring of Andy Reid, the Chiefs brought on John Dorsey as the GM. Now, John Dorsey had his issues managing the cap, but John Dorsey also drafted players like Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, and technically Patrick Mahomes, but we know that was really Brett Veach that was screaming, pounding the table for the Chiefs to draft Patrick Mahomes. So, huge offseason for the Chiefs to pick up Andy Reid, John Dorsey, and then before you know it, the Chiefs have the greatest turnaround in franchise history and one of the greatest turnarounds in NFL history. They started the season going 9-0 after being 2-14 the year prior. If you don't need any more proof as to why Andy Reid might be the greatest head coach of all time, just look at that. You know, Romeo Crennel is no slouch. In fact, Romeo Crennel, I believe, is the oldest head coach to ever coach a football game in NFL history. And while he was a great defensive mind and not the best head coach, he was not entirely clueless as to what he was doing. So the Chiefs were able to have that massive turnaround, and Andy Reid was a huge deal, huge reason for why that was. But in addition to bringing on John Dorsey, Andy Reid, they also picked up Alex Smith. So they traded with the San Francisco 49ers to pick up Alex Smith. And at the time, a lot of people were upset about this move. But I believe that Alex Smith was a great player for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play for the Kansas City Chiefs. And, you know, picking him up helped change things for the Chiefs in the long haul. And it made the Chiefs a stable and a winning franchise. And with the hiring of Andy Reid, you know, I remember watching the first game that the Chiefs played that season. And the Chiefs were kicking a punt, Dustin Colquitt, and the punt was blocked. And I believe one of the Chiefs players got the ball in the end zone, or the ball rolled out of the back of the end zone, and it was a safety. And the score was 0-2 with Jacksonville leading. And I remembered thinking, well, here we go. Here we go again. It's going to be another bad season for the Chiefs. Doesn't matter who's coaching for us. And the Chiefs would, at one point in time, be up in that game 28-2 eventually. So what Andy Reid brought to the Chiefs after that 2012 season was a renewed sense of hope and a new level of expectations for what the Chiefs should be. Completely changed the culture, completely changed what the expectations were for the team, and basically breathed life into the organization once more. This is why it's my number 2 greatest offseason for the Chiefs, for all these reasons. I mean, things were dark and hopeless, and Andy Reid brought life to this team, along with Alex Smith and John Dorsey. Moving on, my number 1 greatest offseason in Chiefs history. And this one is tied directly with the draft, entirely with the draft. I still remember where I was. To this day, I was standing in my living room, both my hands on my head, about to have a heart attack, watching the NFL draft, and knowing that the Chiefs had, you know, around the 21st pick, 22nd pick, something like that. And all of a sudden, there's a trade that comes in with the Buffalo Bills. And this is in the 2017 NFL draft. And the Chiefs are moving up 12 spots to draft at number 10. They gave up a haul to move up that high. And there were 2 quarterbacks in that draft that everyone thought were the guys after Mitch Trubisky had been taken. One of them was Deshaun Watson, and the other one was Patrick Mahomes. Myself and Seth Kaiser were riding for Arrowhead Pride at the time, and both he and I were pounding the table for the Chiefs to take Patrick Mahomes. I've never been much of a tape guy, so Ryan and Dan and Seth, they all tear up the tape. I've been a stats guy and numbers guy. But that offseason, I was frustrated with the way Alex Smith had played in the playoffs, and I thought that, Chiefs needed to move on to the quarterback position. So I started watching tape for quarterbacks, and watching Patrick Mahomes, I fell in love with just the way that he played, the moxie he had, the arm strength, everything. And I was watching him play, and similar to Brett Veach, I thought, this is the greatest player I've ever seen. And at that point in time, I began pounding the table saying the Chiefs have to get Patrick Mahomes no matter what. And I remember they make the call. Roger Goodell comes up to the podium. I'm about to have a heart attack. And sure enough, he announces that the Chiefs take Patrick Mahomes with the number 1 pick after trading up. And that, to me, will always be my favorite Chiefs offseason moment. And I think that move changed the trajectory of the Chiefs franchise forever. And it's evidenced by the 3 Super Bowls the Chiefs have won in 5 years. And I honestly don't think that Patrick Mahomes is anywhere near done with how many Super Bowls he can win. He still has 5 years left in his prime. And that's in his prime. A lot of quarterbacks, and that's assuming his prime ends when he's like 33. A lot of quarterbacks, they'll stay in the league well into their late 30s. And then if you're a freak like Tom Brady and take great care of yourself, you can play after 40 in this NFL with all the rules they have protecting the quarterback. So to me, that's the number 1 moment in all of Chiefs offseason history, picking up Patrick Mahomes in the NFL draft. So there's my 5 with an honorable mention. Let me know down in the comments, where did I get it wrong? Do you agree with my ranking? Do you think those are the top 5 offseason moments? Are there other offseasons you think that are more important? Or do you think that maybe I got my order wrong? Let me know down in the comments. But that's it for this week's video. This is Gary signing out. I'm hoping to have something cool regarding the NFL draft and whoever the Chiefs are going to take next week. It just depends on how quickly I can crunch through the data. But that's a problem for a later time. All that said, this is Gary signing out. Loved bringing this video to you. I had to do so much research. A lot of what I researched wasn't even mentioned in this video. So let me know if you like this video and I can do more like them. I do really enjoy Chiefs history. Maybe I can go and look into some more obscure things. But that's a wrap. This is Gary signing out.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.